Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 in the series of walking through the Shadowlands campaign. This episode will be focusing on Bastion, the first region we visit. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're new. Now let's get into the video. After using the obelisk in the maw, we suddenly find ourselves in a strange city floating in the sky, called Oribos, the Eternal City. Our allies are nowhere to be seen, but in front of us stand a protector captain and an attendant protector that notice our presence. At first they think we are agents of the maw here to attack Oribos, but although they sense the smell of the maw on us, they escort us to meet their overseers. We meet Overseer Ka-Delen and Overseer Ka-Sher, discussing our arrival. Ka-Delen seems amazed that a mortal is standing before her. She introduces herself as one of the Arbiter's attendants, and that we are in the very heart of the Shadowlands itself. We explain to her what we did and saw in the maw, and while this is happening, Tal Inara arrives with news. The Arbiter has stirred. Apparently this is an incredibly important and unusual deal, and we are then told that Tal Inara is the honored voice of the Arbiter. She explains that every mortal soul that enters the realm must pass before the Arbiter for judgment, and she decides what place in the Shadowlands soul goes to get an afterlife it deserves. We get brought before the Arbiter, who seems ever dormant, and are shown a vision of the Shadowlands as they were before. One day the Arbiter was struck by some strange power, and ever since, every soul that came to the Shadowlands is being damned directly into the maw.
For uncounted eons, the Shadowlands was in perfect order. Infinite afterlives, with Oribos, the Eternal City, as the shining heart. Every mortal soul came before the Arbiter, and she, ever wise, experienced all that had shaped a soul in life. With this knowledge, she consigned every soul to the afterlife it justly deserved. Until... in that dread moment, our perfect order was shattered. And so it is that every soul, kind and cruel alike, is denied its rightful afterlife, and instead is damned to the inescapable torment of the maw.
Together, we return to Overseer Ka-Delen, and she suggests that we create a tether to our homeworld, which we do by putting the shard of the Helm of Domination on the map table, and as soon as we do that, a death gate opens and Bolvar with some of his Death Knights walk out, reassuring the Overseers that him and his knights are here to help. Our first order of business is creating portals to both Orgrimmar and Stormwind, just outside the city. After that, we take a tour of Oribos to familiarize ourselves, and then we return to Bolvar. We overhear him explaining what Sylvanas has done, and how big of a threat it is to Azeroth. When Bolvar mentions dark-winged beings who kidnapped faction leaders, Tal Inara mentions that the Kyrian of Bastion are both winged and able to ferry souls across the Veil. It is not a total match, however, as the Kyrian are noble and don't use chains, but it's the best clue we've got right now, so with that, we are sent to Bastion via a gateway that opens up in Oribos. We head through the gateway with the following mission: find a Kyrian to take us to the Archon, their leader. Once we arrive in Bastion, we are greeted by Clea, a Kyrian aspirant. She can't believe the way from Oribos is open again after such a long time. She's excited that we are here and promises that our noble deeds in life have earned us a glorious fate: becoming a Kyrian. We are led to a deactivated construct called Greeter Nemes, who is supposed to be able to give us more information. However, due to the anima drought, it's inactive, so we go around and take some anima from various constructs around us and use that to activate Nemes. With the Nemes unit thinking we are a dead soul here to walk the path of becoming a Kyrian, it tells us to go around 4 stations to learn more about what it means to be in Bastion. The northwestern station, we take a seat, and an image of Greeter Nemes appears to deliver a welcoming lecture. I will be taught the virtues of purity, courage, humility, wisdom, and loyalty. How we will cleanse ourselves from our mortal flaws and ascend to a higher state of being. At the northeastern pool, Clea tells us to step in for a ritual of cleansing, and as we wash, burdens of life are driven from us. And then an image of Tariesh appears, confusing and disturbing Clea. At the southeastern station, we examine our compendium of arrival, and we get told that this place holds the records of all the souls that enter Bastion, with all deeds from their previous life being stored and kept. And lastly, at the southwestern station, we ring a vesper, which is supposed to bolster the spirit and draw forth lingering burdens of one's former life. We return to Clea, who's been thinking about our arrival, finally realized that we are no ordinary soul. She asks us to explain what we saw in the maw, and after that she's deeply disturbed. It is then that the Ascended Kalisteni arrives, demanding to know why we activated Greeter Nemes. Though Clea agrees we need to meet with the Archon, Kel'Thuzad is firm. Only those who walk the path of ascension may meet with the Archon. Clea will continue to guide us on this journey. As we travel, Clea explains how the drought has affected Bastion, saying she nearly passed her final trial when it began, but none have ascended since. In a vision, she shows us what Bastion used to be like. Rivers of flowing anima, souls and aspirins everywhere. She then takes us to Aspirin Rest to meet with Pelagos, her soulbind, a very dear and close friend. However, when we get there, we are told that Pelagos had begun some sort of cleansing ritual, which is apparently very dangerous to do alone. Clea is forbidden to help Pelagos in this ritual, but we aren't bound by such a law, so we aid Pelagos in the ritual, we slay his painful memories and a big excruciating memory that seems to be tormenting him. After we slay this memory, Pelagos returns to Clea, who tells him off for starting the ritual before he was ready. The next step of our journey on the path to ascension is to journey through the Aspirin's Crucible, and we are brought there on Clea's Larian. When we arrive, we are first met by Forge Light Safani, who is expecting us. Our first task is to face memories of our past life, and after fighting memories of the Scourge, Legion invasion, conflict against other factions, and various other events that happened throughout our lifetime, Safani seems impressed, so she asks us to help her with her forge. It has gone cold due to the lack of anima, so we are sent to Sika, who will tell us more. Sika explains that we'll need lots of anima to reignite the forge, so we go around collecting glowing viscera from ether worms who eat anima, and we also gather flowers that are particularly anima rich. A third thing we do is we collect condensed anima through an extractor, which we have to defend from hungry worms that are attracted to it. After all that is done, we tidy up the forge room and clean the forge itself. Then it is time, and by fueling the forge with the anima we collected and assisting Sika, we create armor that is then perfected by Safani. She admits that we have brought her the first hope she has felt in a long time, and it is time for us to face a trial. We are to challenge sparring aspirins and 3 constructs who are designed to train aspirins as well. After we best all of them, it's time to take on Athanos. A fight we lose badly, which is part of the path as well, in the form of a lesson in humility. We report to Clea in the Chamber of the First Reflection, where we'll undergo a cleansing ritual, similar to the one we assisted Pelagos in. We dress in Kyrian ritual vestments and bathe in a pool, after which we ring Vespers of Clarity, and then we are brought to the ritual room, where there's 3 soul mirrors. Each mirror will represent an anguished memory for us to beat. Once we are done, Clea seems joyful that we completed the ritual. Kel'Thuzad's attention has been attracted by the fact that we were able to undergo such a rite so soon after our arrival. We ask her once again to meet with the Archon, and she says that the Archon heard of us and is impressed, and presents us with a gift, a special ability that we can now use in Bastion. Clea is unimpressed that we still aren't granted an audience with the Archon, but we've done all we can for now. We return to Aspirin's Rest with her and Pelagos for a moment of respite. At Aspirin's Rest, we meet disciple Cosmas, who tells us about the Temple of Purity, a place of cleansing, where aspirins free themselves from their burdens. Lately he's become overwhelmed with aspirins seeking purification, and there are not enough disciples to handle it all. He's come to seek anyone who wants to lend a hand, so ourselves, Clea and Pelagos, travel to the temple to help them out. When we arrive, we notice fallen aspirins are being held under guard. They are similar to Kyrian, but a dark purple skin and hair rather than blue. We report to Iridia, the Hand of Purity, and we help her by reporting to disciples within the temple that are in need. We also talk to several vulnerable aspirants to try and give them a final push. Some of them are thankful, some of them don't believe in us, and become fallen. Once we've done all that, we return to Iridia, who has one more favor to ask of us, to find disciple Nikolon, who had been sent to the Temple of Loyalty after he showed doubt, but he has yet to return. And when we find Nikolon, he's being talked to by someone we recognize, Uther the Lightbringer.
The choice is yours. You know how to find us.
With those parting words, Uther flies away and we approach Nikolon, who is willing to come back with us, though he is clearly struggling. On the way to Iridia, we have to help him overcome the manifestations of his doubts. When we arrive at Iridia and tell her that we recognize Uther, she replies saying the name does sound familiar. Perhaps the aspirant Devos took under her wing. Curious that you recognize him, it must be notable because he's from your world. The emotional turmoil Nikolon is showing is unusually bad, and he needs to undergo a rigorous cleansing ritual. This ritual expels a large amount of manifestations, but he fails to keep his faith, transforming into a fallen disciple, who then leaves us to join the other fallen. Iridia is shaken, but when we speak with her, we get interrupted by invading fallen Kyrian, calling themselves the Forsworn. We defend the temple by cleansing the Vespers and defeating as many Forsworn as we can. During the cleansing, we find a bunch of scrolls covered in shifting runes. We collect them and bring them to Iridia. The scrolls are made by someone called Lysonia, who used to be the Hand of Loyalty, and Iridia's soulbind. The Temple of Purity has been sending fallen Kyrian to the Temple of Loyalty to try and convert them back into Kyrian, but instead Lysonia has been turning them into Forsworn. We are flown up to cleanse the big Vespers floating in the sky, while Iridia confronts Lysonia. Lysonia's words get to Iridia, and she's nearly overcome by doubt, but Persephone, Paragon of Purity, arrives to try and save Iridia. and we challenge Lysonia to buy Iridia more time. We fight her until Persephone intervenes, picking up some sort of strange power within Lysonia. She begins dragging her deepest memories from her, but she flees, and only a fragment of Lysonia remains. Persephone finds it interesting that we arrived at the same time as all these problems. She explains that the power she felt from Lysonia came from the Maw. She's going to report it straight to the Archon, and in the meantime, we have to take the fragment of Lysonia to the archives and discover what answers we can find within his memories. And of course, Clea and Pelagos are happy to help. We travel to the Mnemonic Locus, a place where Kyrians store their old memories away. Clea will meet us there, while Pelagos goes off to warn Heroes Rest of the Forsworn attack. When we arrive, the Forsworn are already assaulting the Mnemonic Locus. We find an extremely frustrated Mechanicos. He tells us the Forsworn have taken over and turned the Locus off, including the Locus Keeper Nemes. We aid Mechanicos with restoring the Locus and its keeper by finding the Locus manual and extracting the Centurion cores from the Forsworn constructs. We learn from the manual that restoring anima to the soul mirrors should restore the Locus as well. With the fragment of Lysonia only being a small broken piece, extracting memories is tough. We have to sift through a bunch of different ones and pick out the memories of the Forsworn from the rest. With those memories in hand, the next step is to take them to soul mirrors. In these memories, we witness an image of Lysonia meeting a shrouded figure, who convinces them to turn away from the Kyrian path. The image of Lysonia is turned into a Forsworn and is then seen recruiting other Kyrian to the Forsworn cause. At the final soul mirror, we begin to witness a scene between Lysonia, the shrouded figure, and Uther, but we are interrupted by the Locus Keeper Nemes. Mechanicos is furious. The Locus Keeper is his creation, so he feels betrayed by the disloyalty. He is determined to regain control, and we keep it busy while he resets the Nemes. Once the Keeper is fixed and reset, it tells us we can only access that memory in the Vault of the Archon, so we collect the offerings we need to gain access to the Vault, but inside we find another barrier blocking our way, and while Mechanicos works to take that down, we assist Clea in fighting off invading Forsworn. Once the barrier is down, we enter the inner vault and access the memory. Lysonia asks the shrouded figure in the memory why she sent Uther away, who says his gaze is too narrow at the moment. She reveals that there is another power at play, the Maw. From the sudden emergency in our voices, the Vault Keeper Nemes deduces that we wish to leave, and it directs us to an anima gateway that teleports us out. Clea is determined to get us an audience with the Archon, and asks us to meet her in Heroes Rest, and once we get there, we'll see Clea talking to Calistani, who has agreed to call Polmarch Adrestes. We need to fix a beacon in order to summon Adrestes, so we take a steward under our wing and fix the beacon to summon the Polmarch. When the Polmarch arrives, we get told that the Archon has agreed to allow us an audience, and we get carried to the Elysian Hold to inform the Archon of what's going on.
The circumstances have changed. Tell me of these Forsworn.
Most have merely lost faith, and may yet be redeemed. But some have fallen so far as to wield the power of the Maw itself.
It is true. This mortal has fought against Ascended who are in service of the Jailer. Lysonia is not the only one.
We do not know when or where the Forsworn will strike next, but strike they will.
What you speak of is unthinkable, but we must remain vigilant nonetheless. Paragons, return to your temples. Adrestes, monitor the wards. It appears you have a part to play in all of this, mortal. Let us see what comes of it. Go in service.
The fact that the Forsworn were able to attack the Temple of Purity the way they did is deeply concerning. The temple wards in Elysian Hold should prevent such an attack, so we get asked to check the wards, and when we do, we find that the Ward of Purity is disabled, and all the other wards seem intact, but when we investigate the Ward of Courage, Uther arrives and disables it, yelling that the Forsworn will triumph over the Archon. The Temple of Courage is where Kyrian are taught how to fight. It would be disastrous for Bastion if this one falls, so Adrestes asks us to travel there at once and report to Thanikos, Hand of Courage. On our journey, Pelagos and Clea discuss Uther and the fact that he doesn't seem to be aware that the Forsworn are working with the Maw. When we arrive at the Temple of Courage, it is already under attack, but not by the Forsworn, by Maldraxi forces, led by Lysonia, who seems to be taking orders from none other than Helya. Thanikos tells us how the Maldraxi, led by Nalthor the Rhinebinder, came without warning. Maldraxis is sworn to protect the Shadowlands, so this attack is unprecedented. We are tasked with reclaiming Xandria's Vigil, and soon Mechanicos arrives with more Kyrian forces. He begins to work on an out-of-order Colossus and asks us to find the items needed for its repair. Once we find the items, we defend him while he fixes it, and as soon as he reactivates the Centurion, we jump in and fire a barrage of anima on the Maldraxi. A lich called Amarth flees, heading towards the heart of the Temple of Courage. We need to pursue him, so Thanikos flies us there. We witness Amarth fighting against Xandria, the paragon of courage. Thanatos rushes in to aid in the fight, but is transformed into a monstrous bone wraith. Together with Xandria, we fight the creature and kill it, and once again, Amarth flees, with Xandria hot on his heels. The Maldraxi open fire from their necropolis, but we manage to get away with Apollon's help. Maldraxxus needs to answer for its crimes against Bastion. Apollon will bring a report to Carestria the Firstborn. He invites us to meet him in Oribos, where we need to inform Tal Inara with him. Concerned about the news, Tal Inara tells us that this goes against everything the Necrolords of Maldraxxus stand for. With everything that is already going on, we cannot afford a war to tear apart the Shadowlands any more than it already is. Tal Inara asks us if we would be willing to travel to Maldraxxus to find out the reason for the attack. Overseer Kasher opens a gateway for us, and our next stop is Maldraxxus. And we'll pick this up in the next video of the series. I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!